Hello and welcome to GYDA Talks. And today I'm absolutely delighted to have with me Simon Akers from Archmon. Hello, Simon. How are you?
Hello, Robert. I'm great. How are you?
Fine. There's a bit of hesitancy there, which suggests you're getting ready for a bit of a fight, which is good because I like
Not
that.
at all. I'm just reeling from bank holiday weekend. I'm just getting my cognitive. I'm thinking I need to fire my brain up again for this conversation, Robert. So yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, it's fine for those listening to this later on in the year. It's like it is I think the last day in August or the first day in September. Everyone's kind of comatose into sort of holiday mode. So let's get straight into this. Firstly, could you just give us a quick introduction to Archmon, what Archmon is and what it does, so that people got an idea about who you are and where you're coming
Yeah,
from?
sure. So I set up Archmon to be a growth marketing consultancy. So what that means is, with my background in performance marketing and performance planning, I wanted to create a shop, if you like, that does marketing plans and strategies for clients. And then I like to focus on that bit. Anything that means I have to do the actual execution in terms of going on Ads Manager, that's when my nose profusely bleeds, metaphorically. So what I do, I work with partners who bring those plans to life. So it's essentially a sort of an agile way of working. I sort of project manage and lead on the planning side, and I work with partners who deliver for my clients. And I have a number of clients who I would say that I am their marketing director on demand, and it's quite nice.
That's
That's
perfect.
where we are. Yeah.
So you've got a book, and that's my original introduction to you, called Back to Deep Voice, Back to Basics. This is
I like
God
that.
speaking, back to
So
basics.
when I do a radio ad, you can do the voice.
Okay, back to basics. 21
Okay.
ways to increase marketing performance and success, which is it's actually a good read, which I was surprised because I get lots of books thrown at me, and what you've succeeded in doing here is getting a whole bunch of very wise people to do the hard work and the heavy lifting, and then you've gone in, behind and taken a good quote and made yourself look really intelligent. I mean, seriously speaking, what I would really like to understand the kind of the who, what, why, where, why, when, how of doing the book. And I'll tell you why. I have somewhere in this office about a dozen books that have been given to me by agency owner founders in the last 6 or 9 months. Clearly, people have had free time on their hands, and people have done those books for 100 different reasons. Everything from being a pure lead magnet all the way through to showing their ology, all the way through to creating an authority for themselves. I'd be just really curious, the who, what, where, why, and how of doing that book.
Get started in full candor. I think I had a harebrained idea to do some sort of writing down of all my thoughts anyway, because things were really starting to irritate me. Some of the stories and the nonsense that was being peddled on LinkedIn every day, and I just thought to myself, I'd like to. My whole brand is quite fresh and quite the way I am and the way I am with people, and people who've worked with me down the years will know that I'm, I like to speak, honestly and helpfully, and I just like to almost take the mickey out of all the BS. That's always the way I have been. So I wanted to create. Initially, it was kind of like a lead magnet, to be fully honest. I thought this might be a good way to generate leads because I see people do ebooks for download, that sort of thing. But probably within the first couple of hours of writing it, I'm thinking, I'm not getting any leads here. I'm not planned by design. I'm actually going to be writing my thoughts. And I started to break it down into different sections, the real basics of like, what are we selling? How are we positioning it in the market? Who are our audience? What's the message? What's the creative? Where are we distributing it? And how are we measuring it? Pretty much, fundamental tenets of marketing. And then I started doing it, and I basically spent my whole Christmas writing it, and I wrote probably 30,000 words, whatever. And then I thought, how can I make this even better and add rigor to it? And I realized that what was in front of me was my own collective of partners, and a lot of the partners, a lot of the people in the book are actually partners in my business as well, and suppliers as well. So I thought to myself, why don't I showcase the reasons why I outsource and the why I defer to particular channel and technical expertise from them, and actually get them to talk about their part in their book. So if someone who does conversion rate optimization, why would I not get her to write it over me? Because she's better at it than I am. So that's pretty much how I had. So I thought I had my evidence, my idea, and my thoughts, and I wanted to stress test that with evidence and rigor of third parties who validated what I was thinking, basically. So yeah, that's kind of how it came about.
But it's a nice book because it's actually a bit of it's a kind of a drop-in book, as opposed to, you don't have to read it from cover to cover. You can go straight to the bit on, one thing. It's not 50 pages of heavyweight stuff. It's quite high level, but it's kind of written by intelligent people who know what they're talking about, who give you the pointers, give you the direction, and then you go, okay, now I understand. Now I know what I need to do. And that's in this world of either incredibly techno speak or incredibly bland. It's kind of, you've actually kind of hit a really nice sort of middle point of intelligent without freaking people out with endless detail. I think that's really quite a clever thing to actually have done.
Okay.
So it's not easy. It's certainly not easy, and also corralling all those people to at least create some kind of a common format and for it to flow. I mean, that
I was in the shower one day. I mean, I won't tell you too much about that moment, but I was having my shower and I had these shower thoughts, and I was thinking, I've got all these things, and I realised, hang on a minute, I've got an agile marketing thing. I was speaking to someone the other day, Stefan, who's one of the things about that, and I thought, well, why don't I ask Stefan to contribute? And then I realised, holy nuts, what I could do. I could just do 21 for 21, because I've got about 18, 19, so I can get to 21 because a couple I needed to break out more. And I've got probably 30 people I could ask to do talk. And then what I did, I kind of did a quick spreadsheet. I mapped out the chapters and I wrote a sheet, and then who I'd ask to put their 2 cents in there. And I had to basically sometimes double up at times, because often you have people who they work for, I don't know, Spotify or Facebook, and they weren't allowed to, for their marketing teams, weren't allowed to sign off people commenting or something in industry press. And obviously I've got my own view on that, but I think it was good in the end. It worked really well. So yeah.
So just for those who don't come across it, I mean, you can download the book, and the link will be at the end of this interview. The chapter titles are the basics, positioning and other P's, messaging and comms, branding and design, creative, the advertising itself, traditional media, broadcast media working it harder, content search optimization, partnerships, influence and authority, conversion optimization, paid search affiliates. You get the sense of what it is. Conscious advertising, that's quite an interesting one, I thought. What was that about?
Yeah, so I think that was very much about, around the time I wrote it, I joined the Conscious Advertising Network, because a lot of that is about creating all sorts of things. It could be equity of employees and opportunities and communication in advertising, ensuring that audiences are being represented, there's no hate speech, we're not funding awful websites, all those different things. And there's sort of an element of message being the medium and context there, and how important it is to actually, I guess, associate yourselves with the right areas as well, especially if you're going to be doing brand marketing. And that was the basis of that. Also, I've been working with, on my sort of, one of my little, I guess, projects, when I spend half a day a week working and volunteering with Brixton Finishing School. And they're really big on providing access for underrepresented groups. It could be anything from people of color to the neurodiverse, and giving them an option and education and a seat at the table. So, and my sort of argument is, and I said this to someone the other day, how can you advertise to everyone if you are yourself not everyone? I think you just have to have that diversity in communication, and ultimately think about and be conscious as well who you're marketing to as well.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna. I won't name names, but I worked with a bank trying to reach diverse communities. So right now, the language is a nightmare. Try not to upset anyone, and they were trying to talk to an audience that they had no experience of. So they just wandered around with size 12 wellers, producing pork samosas for a community that doesn't eat pork, and all the absolute. It's actually 101 mistakes. They got all huffety because people didn't turn up at 9 o'clock, and they got all huffety because people brought their family, and we had a natural ethnic speaker from that community, and she was saying this is how it works, and they were saying let's do it in the Hilton. No, we're going to do it at the mosque. You can't do it at the mosque. Why not? That is where these people hang out, and that's where they feel comfortable. So that's where we're going to go. And it's got better now, but I still think we are the dominant brand in business, and therefore our customers should come to us thing still kind of exists, even though there's some stats today about the number of kids English as a first language is now less than 50% of kids in schools. That's been the turnaround. And of course, if you don't live in London, you think that's rubbish. We live in Gloucestershire. Everyone here, apart from that one family. But that's the reality of the diverse country that we live in.
The best case scenario, it's cringeworthy and embarrassing and awkward and corny. But worst case, and probably the most proliferate thing, is it's just going to alienate your brand from others. That's the dangerous thing.
Absolutely, it's just an entirely backward step in time. So how does the book fit in with Archmon? How does the book fit in with the rest of what you do, or was it just kind of like a one-off project?
Okay, that's a good question. It's a one-off project, I thought, but I'm also thinking of maybe doing, potentially, don't hold me to this, maybe delete this after the podcast, maybe doing an advanced marketing strategy or advanced marketing modules or considerations down the line, maybe in a couple of years' time, because there's a lot of things I didn't put in there, a lot of things I left out, and I had to edit it down to not bore myself and others. So I don't know, I feel like some stuff, when we start talking about, data-driven attribution.
Well, your mic's gone funny. Your mic's gone funny with us.
Hello, can you hear me?
You're back again, yeah. Okay.
Sorry. Yeah, so I think, there's a lot of technical stuff, like a lot of the programmatic stuff, a lot of things that are they're not back to basics. They are serious things, because you've got to bear in mind the audience, they're not just bigger agencies and stuff. And I have a lot of inboxes from my old clients in bigger agencies and brands who thank me for the work, but the real audience is the smaller brands who they're like, right, we've made some cloths, let's sell cloths, right? Literally, they're like, it literally is back to basics. Like, here's your marketing spend, here's your sales that come, do a little graph, there's a simple bit of measurement. It's really getting back to basics there.
So the book's been out for 6 months or so. Have people contacted you and given you work as a result of the book? Have people said, oh, we've read this book, it's amazing, can you come in and can you rescue us?
Yeah, I've got one client who has, so a lot of it has been great for sort of the brand awareness. I've built up the CRM base. I've had I was sending emails saying thanks for downloading. I had people from all over the world came back from major brands saying thank you, it's really helpful. There's someone who's running a conference service over in Asia, a video conferencing service, and I've always been sort of mentoring her as a result, which is quite I call that an unintended consequence.
Yeah,
but it's been great, and like I say, I had a very clear goal going into it. It was going to be a lead magnet, but then it became so much more comprehensive than that, and more sort of more of a manifesto to myself and others how I want to do it. And going back to your original question about how it ties in with Archmon, Archmon's about sort of getting back to basics with clients. And because I do have partners who do SEO, content, influencer, whatever, it's a great way to map to my services as well. So there is that. But yeah, that's kind of it in a nutshell.
And I think the beauty of it is that it'll just go on forever. I wrote my first book in 2001, and I don't think a week doesn't go by when I come across someone who says, "Oh, I read the book and that really changed it. The case study in the book about this, that, or the other." And of course, it's stuff that I can't remember at all. You nod your head going, but it is an amazing. I would argue that a print version is an amazing calling card. When I was series editor for Virgin Business Guides, and I mean, my object was to sell 25,000 copies to get all my ideas out to the outside world so everyone knew my thinking. But there's a guy called Tim Cumming, and his thing was quite the reverse, which was I actually only want 25 copies because in the next 3 years I'll probably do 25 important big proposals and big pitches where I want at the end of the pitch to say, and here's a copy of my book with a foreword by Sir Richard Branson. So there's lots of different reasons why people write a book. And
when I registered it on Nielsen, I self-published. I did it as an ebook because of the print one. That was a load of other faff, to be honest. I had a goal to get it out on the 11th, and I did it. But yeah, I mean, I'm not against. I'm thinking that very halfway between you and the other chap. It's more about having it as a. It is a great, of course, from a Machiavellian perspective, it's a great brand awareness tool. It's a great way to grow my business. But I don't need to print loads of copies and get into, Waterstones with it either. It's just something to have, which would be nice, I think.
But there are places that so when I did a gig in Kuala Lumpur for again I'll do my God voice, the Global Marketing Summit, and they wanted copies of the books, and I had to go. And when I got there were 500 copies of whatever the book was. And I had to sit there like for an hour signing every single one of these because as far as they were concerned, they dragged me over there first class, put me in a 5-star hotel. 500 copies of the book at whatever it was, 10 quid to them was no big deal. It was money for me. And for them, where the things of authority, like being a professor or having written a book, are all really, really important. And boom, it probably got me the gig, the fact that I'd written the book and that I could just give them 500 copies of the book. So, but you can get them printed on demand.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest. There has been times where I've said, "Oh, look, I actually wrote about it in my book," and I found myself saying, "I almost hated myself for it." And then I realised, "Oh, God."
Yeah, can I just quote myself from my book? It's
I don't like saying Akers 21, but no, I genuinely, it was such an honest thing. I just said it and I felt like, oh my God, I sound so bad. I said, I actually wrote about that on chapter 5, whatever, in my book. But, it has been useful for sort of context. And like you say, these little examples that people come back to you with, I love an analogy, and I'll talk about, it's not very well having, all the nice gear, but the creatives like bad ingredients, the chicken will taste off, if you don't. I mean, that comes out better in the book. But I do have different analogies, and people say, I love that analogy. And I'm thinking, I can't remember which one that was.
No, I think it's a really good tool to have, and I think that your attitude to it's great. Because I think a lot of the other books that I've read, and I've spoken to some of their people, they say, "Oh, I've written a book because it's what we do," and it's like, okay, so did you actually have a target customer in mind? No, it's just stuff that I wanted to communicate. So it's almost like a vanity project.
I don't care what I do, to be honest. I mean, that's what, agencies, brands, consultants, we do what we do. We do it in our way. We think our way is the best way. But ultimately, all the customer, as in brand, usually cares about is someone that they can work with who's not a total arse, who can get stuff done and help them. So it's kind of like, what can you do for them? It's such an obvious thing. But there's someone, again, I won't name names like yourself, but there's someone who wrote a book recently, and it's just a pithy title, which sounds all cool. It's just to almost garner engagement and likes and provocative content, but it's kind of meaningless. So my interesting was, I'm not interested in that. I'm not interested in becoming a celebrity and making a name. I just want to say what I think is the right way to do it. And if people like that, great,
Cool. So let's get on to Archmon. So I think we're two things, right? The first thing is I think we're agreed that we both hate this whole Facebook follow these 5 secrets and you'll be richer than your wildest dreams or your money back thing. Okay, so that's the first thing that we agree on. So that's simple. Second thing, which is actually it's a slightly complicated question, but I'll try and pose it so it makes sense. The fundamental principles, I would argue, of how you grow a business are pretty straightforward. You need something that people want. You need to be able to communicate it. You need to sell to them. You need to be able to deliver it. It's not actually rocket science. And in fact, most of the things you actually want to understand how to do in business, like how to put up price, how to pitch, how to close, how to write a contract, how to deal with difficult clients, most of that stuff is available. You just bloody Google it. You don't need to write read a book on it. You can find most of that stuff. So I'm saying that most of the stuff is actually out there of how to do it. In the same way, if I want to lose weight, I know I need to go to Fat Club, and at Fat Club they'll tell me to exercise more and eat less. Okay, so it's not difficult. And running an agency isn't difficult. It's a same task done a number of times. One, and secondly, it's not very complex. It's just a number of moving parts put together. It's not a bloody nuclear power station, you know. And yet, I'm constantly surprised how people fail to actually run and grow a good business. I'd just be really interested to know what your thoughts are about that.
Yeah. Going back to the Google thing, I think a lot of people, I think there's a vernacular problem. Yeah. So, for example, a marketing manager, for example, would be someone who helps manage different cohorts of marketing. So it could be advertising, it could be the packaging, whatever. It's a different thing. Yeah. Now, there's been the proliferation of the digital marketing manager and the digital marketing strategy. Now, these are led by Google search ads and Facebook ads manager and, I don't know, Taboola, right? People can go onto these platforms, they can self-serve, they can go onto Google now and go native ads, click on the link, sign up, create an account, verify email, and they are literally now the bastions of their advertising future. There are a couple of JPEGs and pithy lines away from delivering a campaign, right? Now, that's where I say, look, the agency, I mean, I don't call myself an agency, I call myself a consultancy because I don't actually do buying and selling, but I coordinate a kind of an agency solution. But I think either way, it's all about tapping into those who know how to do it. And you're buying into 10, 15 years experience of different people doing different things who know how to do it. They're not just going on Google. Do you see what I mean? So I think it's a very important piece there around why you're doing it. And I read a really interesting article from someone I also write with in New Digital Age, and he said this morning about AI and how, you know, people are talking about AI. It's all very well having all this brilliant technology, but you need to know the raison d'etre, why you press the buttons. And my worry is with Googling things, that sort of thing, is, you know, you've got to give people the why they're doing it as well, which is where I think the planning piece becomes very valuable from agencies. And that's where value can be kind of added as well. You know?
So I go back to my original argument. I agree that maybe so I go back to my original argument, which is most people know what they should do, but they're not able to do it. So if you go into most marketing departments, they know they should have a marketing plan. They know they should have some kind of a value proposition. They should have a quantifiable value proposition. They know they should understand who their markets are. They know that they know marketing bloody 101, 1961, Harvard Business Review. They know that it's all about segmentation and differentiation. They know it's all about unique-ish selling propositions. They know they should have all that kind of stuff in place. And yet what they end up doing is they end up cutting and pasting something they got somewhere else, kind of filling in the boxes, and then wondering why it doesn't work. It's like they know what they should be doing, but they don't do the heavy lifting. They don't go, why is it that people, what is a big problem that our product's really solving? What is the big problem who is it that buys this, and why, when they buy it, how do they feel? And what they end up doing is saying, oh, we sell to marketing and sales directors of companies that blah blah. Yeah, they just don't do the bloody heavy lifting, and that's the thing that kind of puzzles me. Is it because they're not bright? Is it because they think there's a shortcut? Surely they realize that the first answer that they come up with is going to be the wrong answer, because everyone comes up with that answer first. The answer that's going to be right is the 20th or the 21st answer, which they're not going to get by having 7 machines all turned on and 7 screens around them. It's going to be, you know, on the fourth hour of that walk in the woods, where they suddenly go, oh my God, I'd never seen it that way. Or, oh my God, by thinking about the dog food industry, I now realize we could apply the same model or whatever it is. And I'm just wondering why people think there is a quick fix answer that they then don't even follow through on.
I mean, that's the thing. I mean, a lot of the stuff you'll hear, you go back to the whole my 5 secret tips on Facebook. Everyone seems to want to have the bullet, the silver bullet, the answer. But the reality is these things take time and craft. Nothing happens overnight. And I worry that the ability to get instant measurement and gratification and instantaneous setup is seen as some proxy for instant outcome and solution. It isn't. It's you know, like for example, Facebook, they might have the targeting tool of target, you know, mothers in, I don't know, Manchester, because we want to target something, a product in that area for those people. But it might be a case actually with a bit more craft and strategy, they might realize that people who attend the Trafford Centre, who had that experiential event that they went to, are the perfect audience. Do you see what I mean? What I'm saying is it's not always as binary as, oh, that's the audience, that's that. And I think sometimes, like I say, that kind of mindset of longer term thinking and planning and iterating is sometimes lost on the kind of the one clickers.
But that's the fault of marketing industry for not for overselling performance marketing.
All the tech vendors.
Yeah, well, a bit of each. But I mean, when we went into lockdown, everyone, you know, I was screaming at everyone, now is the time to do more marketing. Oh no, we're going to cut back on our budget. I said, okay, let's dig out the research. Here's Harvard Business Review, here's Yale, here's Accenture, here's Ernst & Young. This is all the research from the last recession, and it's mapping out really clearly those that chose to batten down the hatches and wait for it to come past versus those that invested. And even now, you look at the difference in the businesses that have invested against those who haven't. And it's just because investing in brand is difficult to measure, you know, doesn't mean it's not a good thing.
Yeah. Now, I wrote about something the other day because Channel 4 are now doing RTB programmatic advertising for addressable TV ads.
Yeah.
Now, my issue with that is that it's built on the same technology as programmatic display, which is used for CPA advertising. Okay. Yeah. So this is what I mean about technology can be a problem, because I always say just because you can measure it doesn't mean it matters. So you might look at a CTR or something crazy on programmatic, and that's almost meaningful in the right guise if it's an engagement campaign. But if it's brand, what matters is probably reach or the impressions, but like, there's certain things that are irrelevant on that dashboard. Now, my worry is, does the user see that and they will sometimes not think about why TV is there. It's to create fame and reach and all those things to ultimately grow that. You know, it's not just there to drive clicks. And I just think sometimes there's that missing piece there with a lot of the platforms. And as a result of more people in housing, as a result of agencies putting more pressure on brands putting more pressures on agencies, there's more junior staff doing more stuff to drive down to a CPA. It's a race to the bottom. And that's my worry about a lot of the tech stuff. Even digital out of home, that'll have the same problem probably as well. We've got to remember what certain things do, I think, a little bit, you know?
Yeah. I mean, we've just run a big program helping people become video ready. And it was with a bunch of established large independent agencies, a really great bunch of people. And a lot of them really struggled. You know, we are a performance agency. Yeah, well, video performs really, really well. I'm sorry, I don't understand. How do we sell video to clients? We know how to sell performance. We don't know how to sell video. How do we do it? You know, and for me, you know, again going back to COVID, the larger agencies that have what I would call like a plug and play mentality. Oh, we need to be able to do email marketing. What do we need to do to have a department that does email marketing? We need to have a sponsor on the board, tick. We need to have a head of, tick. They need to have a team of 3 or 4, tick. That needs to be fed into the marketing and sales team, tick, away we go. But a lot of agencies had real difficulties moving on to video. It's like, do you understand that video is good and pretty cheap for the client? Yeah. Do you understand that it's relatively easy to deliver? Yeah. Do you understand that it will help you grow your agency? Yeah. Do you understand it's profitable? Yeah. What's the problem? I can't do it. Why not? Well, how do you sell something that you can't sell on the ROI? How do you think every bloody branding agency in the world has survived with their black polo tops going, oh, give us £2 million and we'll change your logo and make it more Swish? You know, everyone's doing it, you know, so why aren't you doing it? Why can't you do it? And I think there's a problem of the platforms who are demanding spreadsheet response from the agencies. I think there's a problem with the agencies because, the wonderful thing about agency people is they've got quite pointy heads, performance agency people. And the problem with the agency people is because they've got quite pointy heads and they're very, very good at doing what they do, they sometimes find it quite difficult to go, it's a business, which is a black box with inputs and outputs. And this is just a different business with inputs and outputs. And there's just slightly different stuff going on inside of it. Instead, what you get is agency people saying, you taught me how to drive a car. I know how to drive a car. You're telling me a motorbike's more exciting, but actually I only know how to drive a car. And I think I'll just stick with a car because it's safer. So there's something about entrepreneurial mindset that agencies have lost, having had 10 good years of just selling Google ads,
Interesting. I like that. So the car and the motorbike analogy on that, because there's two sides to that, of course, because if you're a big laggard company that struggles to make changes, you've always driven your TV buying car because it generates, the DR, exactly. You get good campaign. And for them, the shiny new motorbike, the Harley Davidson coming on the inside is I don't know, TikTok, right? And it's like, whoa, we don't know this new thing. But at the same time, there's always got to be an element of now and then at the weekends, try the bike, put 50% of your budget towards the test, and I think it's finding that sweet spot. But no, I think you're right. I think the way things are set up as well. I mean, some of the larger agencies I've worked in, they've got performance teams, activation teams, brand teams, comm teams, AV. How the hell are they going to, by design and culture and employee incentive, celebrate and promote and endorse the overall holistic piece of marketing? That's the challenge, right? And also, different.
And also, good. And also, I think that agencies have this problem of saying, you have to believe in us because you need to give us this budget. We need $50,000 a month. That 50,000 needs to be distributed in different ways and different levers will be pulled at different times. And you need to trust in us that we will respond to what the market's saying. And some of it will be quick wins and some of it will be long-term wins. Some of it will be difficult, but we just need to do that. So if you're making that pitch versus someone who says, for every $1 you give us, we're going to give you $3 in sales, it feels a bit woolly.
It's tough. I think, like, going back to your evidential thing, I mean, I've recently helped a creative agency. So one of the things I do for my consulting, I also help some creative agencies with their pitch work. Because often, if you think about the dichotomy of media and creative are always like, we have the big ideas, we're the advertisers, and the media are like, you guys just do like coloring, we're the ones with the data, right? But it's bringing together that almost that divide. And talking about e-commerce, and you talk about research, you look at Phil Burnett, long and short of it, Grace Kite, whatever, all these, there's some really good people out there doing some good stuff with econometric data. And it's almost like bringing that to the fore. It's not just some pipe dream written in Harvard 20 years ago. It's not just something where you've got a couple of guys at the IPA talking about Procter & Gamble who've got more money than we'll ever see in our lives. It's actually about the reality of these tier 2, 3 brands, how they can actually, provide the evidence of, they did this. They did drop from 3 to 1 to 2 to 1, but it's okay because their revenue was higher because they spent more. So they drove more revenue, and to grow, they needed to make a cut on the ROAS KPI evolve the KPI and actually they get more revenue whilst decreasing the ROAS. And it's almost taking people on a bit of an education, isn't it?
Yeah. So do the agencies need educating in a different way of seeing things, or do the brands, or both? And if so, who does that?
I mean, I'd say the brands, because I'm interested in working with the brands. So, of course, I mean, I think the agencies on a bigger scale would do well to educate themselves, because I think if they've got the keys to the dashboard of, these big advertisers who are spending millions every year, it'd be interesting to see how they spend their money. If they see if smaller companies see small to medium companies represented by the Omnicoms and WPPs of the world starting to advertise in TV and radio and addressable media on Spotify and Deco, they're going to all of a sudden think, hang on a minute, I'm interested in this, maybe we could do this. Why are we doing it? And I'll go, yeah, fine, David, but there is no straight ROI on that, right? You're going to have to take a hit on that. Oh, okay, fair enough. I've seen it. I like it. So I think there's going to be an element of, there needs to be something in that sort of tier 2 agency space where they really start to help along those innovations and, challenging the status quo a bit, because otherwise it's just going to be the same old conversations with everybody all the time, forever and ever. So.
Well, you're always going to get that argument of, Coca-Cola employ intelligent people, McDonald's employed intelligent people, apart from the obvious case studies where they didn't. But on the whole, they do. On the whole, they do, and they advertise on TV, so therefore, TV's safe. It's like you never got sacked for hiring IBM type mentality.
Correct.
Plus, I think you're absolutely right that when you are a Procter and Gamble and you've got 50 years of brand and you've got 50 years of advertising and you own every bloody product and several lanes of the supermarket, it's not normal, and most business school type stuff is based on stories about the not normal trying to be applied to the normal, so yes, it would be fantastic if I was the marketing director of McDonald's or Coca-Cola or Procter and Gamble and maybe 200 other brands, but that's it. And then the rest of the world keeps reading bloody case studies about them as if we are like them, and we're not. I'm not a Ronaldo, I just kick a football round on a Sunday afternoon.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not even two runners, but yeah, I think the funny thing you say is like the part. I'm doing a lot of stuff with my clients. I helped launch a mental health book brand. I'm working with a wine brand now. We're doing a lot with affiliates and partners because there's a conversation around, a lot of these people, by the way, they come to me and they go, oh, Simon, we've seen a good ad, let's do that on TV. But then, yeah, we would, but that requires a different level of investment. And I think it's understand that level. You've got to understand as well, a lot of these brands are, we are coming out of a recession, we're out of COVID. And I do think people are still quite prudent with their investment. They do want to focus on ROI, but I think people are starting to understand that, hopefully, I don't want to back myself too much on this, but a lot of my clients are starting to understand the point about diminishing returns. And, you can optimize to death everything until you get nothing. So you need to top up the funnel. But it's a hard challenge for them and for me and for everyone, really, to actually sell that in, because and you mentioned video, which is interesting. And that's almost like a gateway drug for brand marketing, because it's got two things. It's got the big, do you see what I mean? It's got that kind of like the non-skippable big brand formats, native, YouTube, non-skip, all that sort of stuff where you can sort of have some big brand films. Nike can do a minute video and it's all good. Then you've got your TrueView, tails.com, sign up, 10 seconds, skip. And the point is, video is one of those where you can have different types. You can have more performance-y focused, i.e. a sort of a measurable action immediately. And then there's the bigger brand salience pieces. So what I'm finding is that sort of people are looking at things like video and digital audio as these kind of, I guess, gateways to get out of the, input-output machine model, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I think that it's also, really understanding that it's actually back to my bank thing, being based in being a 55-year-old man being a banker who's always worked for the bank is the same as being a 55-year-old marketing executive trying to get down with the people, and
Yeah, 100%.
and you only need, well, I feel it. I feel my age. I feel it. When people write single letters as replies to things on LinkedIn, and you go, oh, what does that mean? I don't know. But there is a gap, as there always has been, between the advertising execs, predominantly male and white, and the marketing directors they're selling to, predominantly white and male, again selling to women or Afro-Caribbean people.
You've got a woman of colour living in the northwest of England.
Yeah.
I'm not being funny. I'm pretty sure, Rupert, who went to Cambridge, right, who's 6'5" in his red trousers in Soho, isn't the best person to speak to her. And I say this with a tongue in cheek, but we know it happens. So I think there's got to be a bit more diversity. And I was talking to someone about this the other day about geography. Someone who's a former chief sort of growth guy at an agency. I was on the phone to him the other day, and he was telling me that when they did a pitch for one of these sort of wider sort of sub-primary brands, market across the UK, and like one of the execs had their picture taken next to a train sign up in Bradford or something to prove they'd done their like research in the field. And it's just like, but it's almost like they're trying to make that leap of geography. But I think the London-centric thing has been a problem for a lot of brands, and I think that's something where procurement has squeezed a lot of brands as well. And I think there's a lot of brand side education needed, going back to the education point, Robert, because procurement see the 1 in 5 out model, but they don't see that for TV or out of home. But again, where's the education there? I don't know. It depends on the brand, I guess, and how closely the marketing function works. I mean, Pete Markey, who forwarded my book, he said the modern day CMO needs to be a CTO, a CFO, a chief people officer, and they have to integrate, like across the groups and the bigger businesses. And I imagine that's the case in brand side as well, that the procurement teams need to definitely.
It is tough. So how do you, I think we're just about out of time, but how do you, two questions. The first one, how do you see certainly on the performance side, how do you see agencies in a year or 18 months time? 5 years ago, Google was the only gig in town. That's all you needed to worry about. Get on the Google bus and away you went. That is no longer the case. So you've got a proliferation of platforms we can reach people on. We've got a changing culture of people coming through, both as staff and as customers. We've got AI coming through. We've got work from home. We've got agencies saying we must niche, or we must focus on one specific product, and then we've got agencies saying we need to be a full service agency, and everything in between. I mean, how do you see do you see there being a model of what an agency should look like in a year or 18 months time, or would be really interesting in your views about how agencies grow?
I remember, some of the bigger agencies have done some great stuff, to be fair. I mean, my old colleagues at Essence, for example, they've just started a consulting division. So they know how it's going to go. They know they can use their planning and strategy talent to create.
Got that.
Yeah. And I think that's good. And I also see they did it with the tech lab thing they did with L'Oreal, where they almost have a hybrid team of in-house brand and agency people working together. So I think there needs to be two things. It's a long answer to your question. The collaboration needs to be there, so more integrated teams, but also like agencies need to prove that their understanding of cross-advertiser insight can be replayed to the advertiser. Because, the trouble is, a lot of the in-housing people, people who've got, they've got a log on in Penzance, they're like, well, I can do it myself, right? So I think the way agencies are going to, I guess, fight that good fight and continue their, at least hold and their growth trajectory, is to charge and type time for the value that they offer. Now, how that works in terms of value-based pricing and value FTE, I'm not the guy for those conversations anymore, but look, there's got to be more focus on the why and the what, not necessarily the how, the That would
And
be
I'm
my
actually,
quote.
I'm actually going to go back to Theodore Levitt in 1961 in
Go
Harvard.
for it. What did Theodore say?
So good old Theo, my mate Theo, good old Theo said, "It's I've got to get this right. It's not about strategy," and everyone goes, "Oh yeah, of course you're right. It's not about strategy. It must be about tactics. About tactics." He goes, "It's not about tactics," and they go, and everyone goes, "Oh yeah, it's not about strategy. It's not about tactics. What could it be? What could it be?" And he says, "It's about customers. That's all. It's just about
Yeah.
customers." And this whole kind of marketing myopia thing appeared, and nothing has changed. Everyone always talks about tactics. I mean, TikTok, we've done it. TikTok versus, and we go, "Oh, it must be about." It's not. It's about understanding the hurts, needs, itches, scratches, wants of customers, and how we can help them. And so, in some senses, marketing hasn't changed because we're still in this old. Agencies think tactics are sexy. You and I know it's obviously about strategy, but actually, it's not just about strategy. It's actually really about.
And ultimately, why do people employ us? Why do people employ consultants, agencies, marketing experts? Because they just want help people to love their brand so they buy more of their stuff, right? That's basically what it is. Let's get back to the basics.
Yeah. That's right. That's it. You're just trying to help people buy, help people buy. Or as my daughter said, she worked in Farringdon. We help people buy shit they don't really want, which I think is a bit cynical.
Well, I'm not saying. I actually also worked at an agency in Farringdon that said something similar, so I don't know if it's the same one, but I won't ask any more about the family tree. But no, you're right. It should be back to that kind of level of, what are you here for? You're not here to do a really cool slide on innovation and share what you learned in your free pret-a-manger from the media owner. You're here to genuinely help them sell more. It's as simple as that.
Brilliant. So, final question, because we've definitely run out of time. What are the things that you hear yourself saying an awful lot? What are the pithy pearls of wisdom, either from the book or in your general say? There must be.
Well, I was with my family. It was my birthday last week, and I was with my mother and father, and they said I'm using the phrase "line in the sand" a lot at the moment. Now, I use that a lot because I think that's a really important. And I'm going to double down on it and justify this use. Right? Line in the sand, because when you plan, I tell my clients, I'll do a playbook. So sometimes I do like a 3-month project, do a plan, and I'll go away, whatever. But I say, look, I want this to be out of date in a year's time. I tell them that, right? Because I believe that line in the sand, you plan based on the data you have, based on the market, based on the audience, based on address, all these different things. But line in the sand, that's the right thing to do. But then you should always challenge yourself 6 months, 9 months, 3 months down the line to put a new line in the sand and go, right, where are we? How are we getting on against that objective? Are we achieving it? I just think that keeps me honest as well, because I had a great answer for a brand 2 months ago and it's probably rubbish now. Yeah. Do you see what I mean? You've got to be really, really, really honest with yourself. And I think brands should challenge themselves to get out of that kind of inertia of, oh, we did TV 3 years ago and it didn't work. Because the important thing is things have changed. There's more addressable. There's a lower barrier to entry now. You look at the ThinkBot stats. There's like 50,000 advertisers who spend a lot less than 100K on there. You've got like all these different people, a lot less barriers to entry, more data points, more sophisticated use of first party, a need to grow the first party base. Maybe the new line in the sand needs to be drawn. So that would be my thought, definitely.
Brilliant. And your final words of wisdom to share with the world would be what?
There's so much more to ROI than short-term ROI on a spreadsheet, because what looks good there on the day will diminish over time if you don't top up the pot. So that would be my thoughts.
Perfect. What a great place to finish. It's been an absolute pleasure talking with you, Mr. Akers. Really enjoyed it.
Thank you, Mr. Craven.
And I hope we have a conversation again. I did enjoy it, have enjoyed it. And
likewise, thank you.
All I can say is thank you very much, and it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you very much indeed, Phil.
Thank you, Robert. Take care.
Cheers.
Thanks. Bye-bye. Bye.